Welcome, welcome, welcome once again to the Red Hot Mic. I am your host, G. Alpha Palmer, and I'm glad you're here. One more time. All right. Let's turn this down a little bit. All right. Let's get busy. It's the Red Hot Mic. G. Alpha Palmer here with you once again, and I'm happy to be with you one more time. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. It is that time for us to both ruminate, elevate, and to activate. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as you continue to view the Red Hot Mic. Let's get rid of some of the light. Let's see if we can get rid of, there you go. Just a little bit, but I'm glad you're here. I am so glad you're here. It's another edition of the Red Hot Mic. And I am so glad that there's another holiday season. For those that I want you to see our new logo and also our new t-shirts. And we are giving them out to the first 100 people that would subscribe and would also send us your email. All right, so we'd love to give you. Oh, you have to send us your size. So anyway, it's the Red Hot Mic, and here is a toast to you, the most, the best for you in this coming year. Pomegranate juice. I drink. The drink of champions. Well, there's so much going on. There's so much going on. I've been asked by so many people, what are you going to talk about? And there's so many topics, so many things that can be talked about. Excuse me. There are so many things that can be talked about, but I mean we're gonna try to keep it in a place where it goes along with what masculinity man cave is all about. We're gonna continue to share with you in the masculinity man cave, and I'm excited to be able to be here with you again. This is G. Alpha Palmer with you, coming from the man cave, and we are once again here at the Red Hot Mic with G. Alpha Palmer. And I was thinking about a lot of different things. There's a lot of different areas that we can go to. And again, this is our t-shirts. You can get one of these. You can get one of these by liking, subscribing to the channel. The first 100 that does that will get these t-shirts. You have to send us through the email scrolling underneath the page and get us your address and your size so we can get you your t-shirt. Love to send those out to you. Another edition of the Red Hot Mic, and we're excited about this particular this edition because what we're going to talk about is something that's important to the masculinity man cave, as we always do. I'm excited, and we want to get busy because you know how we do. The first thing we do is we come with our candle of the evening, and it's Apotica, and it is one of my favorites, and I do continue to use this. And it is a charcoal. It's called charcoal, and it is a very clean smelling fragrance, and I really enjoy it. So we're going to use that one again today. Very clean charcoal has a lot of benefits to it, and because of that is one of the reasons why I use it. It helps to bring a clean smell, a clean air to alleviate the air of toxins, and it also helps with just smelling good. It just makes the room smell good. I don't know what's going on back here. But we want to see what's going on. It is the red hot mic, so we're supposed to have on that right there. I don't know what the rest of it was, but this is the red hot mic. And being that it's the red hot mic, we have to have our fire up because it's allow us to get warm. I mean, the weather's changing. It is, we know that. But at the same token, it's still the red hot mic. And being as such, we're going to keep it warm. Keep it warm. So anyway, we have already talked about our fragrance of the evening, our candle, but our fragrance of the evening is one of my favorites, and I continue to stand by this one. It is Tom Ford Noir Extreme, and I really, really like this fragrance, and it says here, it says that it makes a statement without uttering a word, with a touch of Tom Ford Noir Extreme. Light enough for casual occasions, to the gym, or even to the business lunch. This fragrance, men's fragrance, carries hints of mandarin orange, saffron, and nutmeg for a hint of spice. First introduced in 2015, this men's fragrance from Tom Ford became an instant classic. This extraordinary and exceptional men's fragrance also carried notes of cardamom and neroli, and is ideal for wearing any time of the day. And it is. It's a tremendous smelling fragrance. And if you want it, you definitely want to add this to your collection, gentlemen. All right. And again, we do this we do homage to Mr. Kevin Samuels, because we greatly appreciate the example that he has set for so many of us. And so I do this on our broadcast to recognize and to commemorate Mr. Kevin Samuels. All right. That's how we do it. And it is not to take from him, but to add to him and to add to his memory. One of the things that we also do is we do what we call we call it the answer wheel. And the answer wheel is designed for us to be able to get answers to maybe some difficult questions that you may be having. Maybe some things that you've been toiling with over, I don't know, some recent time. And so what we do with the answer wheel is we give you an opportunity to hopefully get an answer to that which you've been looking for. So once again, what we do is, if you look at our answer wheel, it provides us with 7 answers. I should say 6. No way. Try again. Ask a friend. Yes, maybe, and definitely. So, if you've got a situation where you have some problems getting answers, maybe this could be a place to release your faith, for you to just believe that the universe can answer your situation, your question, right where you are right here today. And I believe that's possible. I believe that that's possible. The universe uses a myriad of different ways to answer questions, to calm fears, inquiries. So it's an opportunity for you to allow the universe to answer your question, but only if you can believe it. It only works if you believe it. It's no one else, not me, not anyone that may say something different and say, oh, that's hogwash. To them it is, and it is. But to you, you have to make up that decision for yourself. So here's an opportunity that whatever your query is, whatever your situation is, the universe can use this die to answer answer your question. If only you can believe it. It's totally up to you. So what we normally do is we give the answer wheel a spin, and what normally happens is that we get an answer, and it'll pull to one answer. And tonight, today, this afternoon, the answer is maybe. Maybe. Maybe where you are is where you need to be. It's up to you. Maybe is one of those kinds of questions or answers, I should say, that gives you leeway and gives you the possibility of making a choice, saying that there is the universe is giving you a free reign to make a choice, and normally that choice that you've made has been placed there by the universe. So go with what you feel. Go with what you think you should do. That first hint that you get in going and doing that, do it. Do it. And then see how it comes out. Because maybe it's saying you have a choice. And that you have a choice. You can do it the way that you want to do it, however that is. So take advantage of that. And that's our answer wheel for this particular portion of our program here on the Red Hot Mic. All right. It's time for us to talk about our subject today. I toyed with different topics. I really did. And so this is going to be called From Boys to Men. We're going to be looking at some things that I think that are really important relative to the developmental process of moving from boyhood to malehood to manhood. There's a lot going on in our community, culture, and clan. A little while ago, we had a shooting at the University of Virginia where some basketball players were killed. And on the bus by another former player. We recently had the shooting of the rap group member Takeoff, who also lost his life here just recently, just several months ago, I believe it was. And so there's an issue of male on male violence, and there's an issue of why, the question is, why is this happening? What's going on that's causing the young to prematurely leave? And it has and so we want to address that tonight. We want to address this with this session. And I'm a firm believer that many celebrities tend to be the cultural thermometer or barometer, or whatever you want to call it, by which the culture, the society, or the societal issues are brought to the forefront on the world stage. The most current issues are the violence that took place in Houston with Takeoff. After that, we've seen also again with the incident that occurred at the University of Virginia. And it's really one of those situations where we're seeing our young people, gunned down or killed prematurely, because your life is not here for you to just come and just live. You're supposed to have long life. That's the universe's desire for you, is to have a long life. But the long life has to be a life that's meaningful. That has to be one of service to others, and it has to be one that's not just service to others, not just service to your family, but the service to the community, culture, and the clan. Okay, so the title of this video is From Boys to Men. It's very intentional and specific to the problem of developmental masculinity development. I think that's so very important in regards to our community, culture, and clan. So we've had a lot of problems in our communities. We've had a lot of problems in our community, And with the advent of the internet and social media, the magnification of our atrocities seem to be readily available, and accentuated upon in the public. But these atrocities are not just happening to us. It's not just happening in the inner city among people of color. These things are happening around the world, and things are happening at a breakneck pace. And maybe not. Maybe these things have always been happening, but with the advent of the internet and social media, we're able to, at breakneck speed, to have it known and come to the forefront and to come to the world stage, and people know about it. So maybe they were always happening, but yet now we're able to become aware of them more readily than we ever have before. So when we talk about the violence and everything that is happening, I submit that it's a developmental issue that needs to be addressed. It needs to be dealt with from a developmental perspective. Namely, I like to call them the 8 elements of masculine development, or 8 elements of masculinity development. And there's a difference between masculine and masculinity, but we'll talk about that. And I have other videos as well that speaks to it. Now, I've spoken on this topic numerous times, and to be honest with you, there's numerous videos in our archives concerning the topic. However, in light of what's going on around us, what's going on around our community, culture, and clan, it's important that we begin to address these issues, like what's happening with the rap group of the Amigos, and what happened to Takeoff, for instance. That violence that occurred. Why the violence against manhood has always been a human phenomenon. Some cultures have always exercised violence more than other cultures. Africans were sold into slavery. Caucasians were have sold Caucasians into servitude. Asians have warred against Asians, and the list goes on. So this phenomena is not just an issue relative to those of color. However, in order to minimize the effects of the behavior, we got to become aware of that it's a developmental one, and that it can be challenged through proper developmental processes. Through this broadcast and broadcasts like this and some of our other videos, we want to address the issue of developing from boys to men, in order for us to better address the development of our boys, and how to minimize the effects of some of the atrocities that they're facing on a daily basis. So one of the things I try to do is I do it over and over again, and you'll see it on numerous of my videos, is to explain going from masculine to masculinity. And to understand that going from masculine to masculinity, masculine is a non-gendered, it is a operational or functional energy that has no gender attached to it. It is functional, and it is not only functional, but it is operational. And when we talk about masculine, what we're literally talking about, that the process by which something initiates, inserts, injects, penetrates, or pierces, right? It also protects and provides, right? So it's important for us to understand that masculinity, or I should say masculine, is something that preceded everything. It is an energy source, or I should say an energy resource, that eventually came from the Creator. And it came to initiate, insert, inject, penetrate, pierce, protect, and provide. That's what it comes to do. It always does that. Anything that occurs in that nature is masculine energy. It's important to understand that. Anything that initiates, inserts, injects, penetrates, pierces, protects, or provides is masculine. And I hear people say that we have both masculine and feminine energy. No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't. We'll talk about that. But the bottom line is masculine has one aspect to it. Now, I just named several operational, right, or functional operations that it has. And so what we've got to understand is to examine how things happen in the universe, how things happen in the universe, whether it's something whether it's initiated, whether it's inserted, injected. All these are qualities of a masculine energy. Okay, a masculine energy. So it's important that we get that. It's important to understand that masculine is an energy that comes and it has no gender assignment. But once what happens is, in order for anything to get into this atmosphere lawfully and to operate and function correctly and lawfully, it has to have what we call scientific notation. It has to have scientific ideology and order attached to it. So masculinity, what happens is, to enter into this atmosphere, into this sphere that we live in, masculine had to drop the E and add the suffix ity. Now, the suffix ity actually means quality, state, degree, order, or sequence, or the science of. That's basically what masculinity is. Masculinity is now the assignment of and it is a gender assignment of what we talked about before, of initiating, inserting, injecting, all those qualities that we talked about. So it has now become the science of masculine. And so it moves from masculine to masculinity by dropping the E and adding the suffix ity. So masculinity is broken down into three stages. And every single masculine assigned entity goes through these three stages, or are assigned to go through these three stages. But there is some requirements in order for you to matriculate into these particular stages. Okay, first one is boys. When you are born, all masculine entities are born as boys. Okay, masculinity put on boyhood. All masculine entities are born that way. And how do we know that it's a boy? The same way we know that it's a boy when we go to the hospital. When the hospital tells us, and we see that baby that's born in the cradle, and it has above its name, or it has the name boy and the boy child, and your name, or the last name of the family name. So it's important to understand that masculinity is broken down in the first stage as boyhood. And in boyhood, there's 8 stages that we're going to talk about, or I should say 8 elements that are required for you to matriculate from boyhood to malehood. That's the second stage. That's the second stage of masculinity, is where boys are developed. They're matriculating to malehood. Okay? And so once they go from boyhood, they're going to go into what we call malehood. After they go through the stages that we're going to talk about later. And then they go from malehood. These developed boys develop from boyhood and matured enough to go into malehood, matriculating to malehood. Then again, these 8 elements come into play, but on a different level. They come into play on a different level than they did before with the other stages. So they're developing all 8 phases or areas of masculinity as they move from malehood to manhood. He becomes a fully grown man once he has matriculated and come into the stages of manhood. Now, at each stage, again, is the 8 elements that each masculine entity must satisfactorily develop, and matriculate to the next stage of masculinity. the 8 stages or the 8 elements that we have to go through are as follows. And now listen, I've gone through this time and time again in other videos. I'm not going to go into it in depth. So you can go to our archives and see the other areas and go in depth as to what these areas are. But the areas are mental, cognitive, emotional, psychological, philosophical, intellectual, physiological, and chronological. Now, I heard people say, oh, that don't make sense. They do. They very much make sense. And if you follow what we're talking about and some of our archived videos, you'll see very clearly how and why they are very, very important in each stage to matriculate from boyhood to malehood and from malehood to manhood and then manhood to another phase, which we'll talk about later. But I think it's important right now that we just deal with these 3 at this point. So the 8 stages are repeated within each stage, which causes us to elevate, expand, extend, and excavate the development processes that we need to go through in order for us to grow and mature. And this is where the problem is. The problem is that when we look at the stages of development, we see boys, and boys normally go they go from birth to about between 19 and 25, depending on the boy and his development and how intense his development is and how much that the men in his life have helped develop him. Okay, so it's important for and how he is able to develop. It depends on the areas that we talked about: mental, cognitive, and psychological. All those areas. So it depends. So the boyhood, it ranges from birth to about between 19 and 25. Then the malehood ages is between 26 to 40, and then the manhood is from 41 to about 65 over. So it's important to understand that when you are in these stages, okay, that certain aspects and certain developmental markers take place. And it's important to understand that these markers play a big role in how you go about living your life. So in boyhood, again, we talked about between birth and 25, 26, whatever. And then there's 3 phases within boyhood. There's an early, middle, and late. The early boyhood is between 5 and 12. The middle boyhood is from 13 to about 18. And the late boyhood can last from 19 to 25. Again, it depends on the boy and how he's developed. We have some, believe it or not, that never make it out of boyhood. And that's why you see some boys act the way they do. That's why you see grown men, physically grown, physiologically grown, but yet mentally, cognitively, psychologically, they are not mature. They've never left boyhood. And because of that, that's going to cause problems, because in boyhood there are some developmental markers that really, and then, again, this is more stuff that is archived in some of our other videos, but there are things that boys do that if you're not if you're not a girl, you may have problems. If you are a female or a woman, you're going to have problems with a physically mature male acting like a boy. It's going to present problems. This is why we have relationship problems. We have relationship problems because people have not developed in a way that they need to develop. And as a result of that, it causes problems in relationships. It's just as much a problem as a female, or I should say a male with a female. They have different markers, different areas of concern, different areas of focus, right? Different levels of importance, what's important to them, and it causes an imbalance there can never be balance because they both have they have different ideologies, different areas that they think that are important. So it's important that we understand that in boyhood there's three stages: early, middle, and late. And what we also have to understand is that not only is there early, middle, and late stage, but there are critical parts, components to their maturity and to their way of thinking and to their mentality. Again, something that's in some of the other videos. You might want to check out our archive videos to gain some more of those ideas. Now, one thing I will say about the mindset is that with boys, gender schema becomes more of an issue, and that means gender specific messaging through experience. They experience certain things, and as they experience certain things, they begin to gain a knowledge through their experiences of what their gender is, how they are supposed to operate in through the things that they experience. The other one is gender labeling, where they have chosen genders, and this is where a lot of times children need to be directed, because they will choose a gender behaviors that are not accurate toward what they have been assigned. And so what needs to happen is they need parenting to show them the proper mode and operation assigned to that particular gender labeling. So they may assign a certain behavior as being something that it's not, and it takes parenting for them to teach and discipline the child, because children cannot train themselves. Children, that's why they need parents. If they could do it themselves, there would be no need of parents. But there is a need for parents, and then parents are to help them to better understand gender labeling. And then the last one is that I want to just talk about relative to the boy, the early, middle, and late stage within the boy stage of development is the pleasure principle, and that's the assignment of pleasure through different erotic zones that they may experience. And so it becomes the parent's job to help them to understand those things. And so parents play a role. It's important in the life of a child, and especially with a son, that his father plays a very important role in these particular areas: gender schema, gender labeling, and the pleasure principle, to help them, to guide them, to discipline them on what is appropriate and what is inappropriate for those that are in this particular gender schema or this particular gender assignment. Okay, so it's important that we understand that. Okay, so some of the things that we've got to understand with boys is that they have conscious powers, and with boys, as they mature and move from boyhood to malehood, some of the things that become important to a male is force. For a female, becomes seduction. Okay, for a male, it may become physicality or violence, and then for a female, it may become more cognitive, or I should say verbal, which comes from the cognitive. For the male, it may be one of their powers may be control, force control. Force and control seems to go together, and they learn that through different means, whether that's sports or other things. And then for females, they learn manipulation, and that manipulation is the equivalent to the man's physicality and his ability to force by his physical strength. The girl, the female, learns how to use her mind, her verbal skills, her cognitive skills to manipulate. Okay, and then lastly, for the male, is the whole idea of competition. They compete against each other. They compete and they learn to compete, and that's built in to males to compete. You know, we watch football or sports during the weekend, and sometimes ladies wonder, well, why do you see so much in it? Why do you take it so serious? Because is something built in males that want to compete. And when they side with the team, they are literally competing against the other team or the other profession or whatever. So competition is important. Now, on the flip side of that is the females who has the idea of rivalry. And the rivalry has to be who's the cutest, who's got the longest hair, who has the most interest of boys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that rivalry becomes an issue for the females, just like the competition is for the males. So these conscious powers that they have are developed through relationships with those that are most influential over them. So it's important to understand that these conscious powers will either take on masculine or feminine energy, depending on the most influential persons in their lives. For instance, if as a boy that grows up in a single parent home, and the mother is the one that is home, chances are the influence over him is going to be more feminine, regardless of how she says that she's going to raise him to be a boy. She can't, because she's not. She can't be what she's not designed. So she can't do it. Okay, so these conscious powers get diluted, polluted by the influences over their lives. And so that's what happens with so many of our boys that are raised in single parent homes. I mean, according to Takeoff's father side of the family, who says that they were kept from having a relationship with Takeoff because of Takeoff's father not wanting to have a relationship with his mother. So she weaponized Takeoff against his father and his side of the family. This is what I don't know if this is true, but I mean, these kind of things do happen. But this is what the media is saying was some of the problems with Takeoff and his father's side of the family. And these kind of things happen, and as a result of that, there's less masculine roles. Now there can be masculine roles on the mother's side, but the father's side is very, very important, that the father be involved in the life of his child, especially his son. Okay, so when we talk about the whole idea of the importance of having a relationship, is just you can't get around it. So no one can take responsibility for fostering in a relationship if both people are not allowed the opportunity to have some input in the child's life. Again, we talked about boyhood. We talked about the early, the middle, and the late stages of boyhood. And it's important that we understand that there are some key characteristics that I just mentioned that are just so critical in our boys. They have to learn how to control violence. Control. They got to learn how to deal with their desire for control, for competition. All these kinds of things take a man to be able to teach a boy how to masculinely navigate through the minefield of learning the proper mentality when it comes to those kinds of concepts. Now, let's say those 8 elements that we talked about: cognitive, we talked about psychological, we talked about mental, we talked about physiological, we talked about psychological, we talked and then it goes on. And we talked about 8 of them, right? And so when he matriculates, he has 25 years, at least 25 years, to get that down if he's properly trained, depending on the training and who it comes from, and how intense that training is, and how involved those that teach him are involved in his life. And so let's say he comes to maturity, and he moves from boyhood to malehood, and from 26 to about 50, It's malehood. Of course, it can change. It can be more. It can be more or less. But the bottom line is, we have an early, middle, and a late stage of malehood. Early stage is between 26 and 35, where takeoff age was. It's the middle stage is between 36 and 45, and the late stage is between 46 and 55. And somebody said, "Well, these are old. I mean, they should mature before this." No, what you've got to understand is the universe intended for males, for boys, males, and men to mature later than girls, females, and women. And if you look at it, that it always has happened that way. Girls mature before boys, and we see that in adolescence they begin to form, and they think differently, they think more maturely. And while boys are still acting goofy and silly, girls begin to mature and think differently, because the universe wants them to learn and to move forward so that they can be what they need to be to the home and in the home, in helping to establish and to maintain a home. Whereas a boy hasn't yet to come into his area of being able to flow and to grow, because he's not ready yet, and the universe is not purpose for him to do that yet. So he's supposed to mature later. And if you understand that maturing for women and for girls, females and women, goes on throughout life. Women will age quicker than boys, and that's why males, boys, men eventually have the ability to go younger, and do go younger with girls or with females, because of the whole idea of procreation, of the idea of leaving a legacy. Okay, so it's important to understand that in boyhood it was some of the things that I mentioned before, as far as being important aspects of cause of how he grows. Whereas we talked about competition and things of that nature. Whereas when he grows into malehood, the things that become more important is his development of domination. He wants to dominate. In what areas does he want to dominate? He wants to dominate in the area of money, muscle, mastery. He wants to dominate in sex. He wants to dominate in looks, and he wants to dominate in seduction, or understanding seduction. Okay, so it's important that those things become areas that he's going to really, really attempt to master through his malehood. Malehood. Okay, and let me correct that. Let me correct it, because whereas a male wants to master in the area of money, muscle, and mastery, the female wants to master in sex, looks, and seduction. Okay, so it's not all male, but it's male in the area of money, muscle, and mastery, and it's females in the area of sex, sight, and seduction. Okay, let me correct that for you. So when boys move from and see, this is where boys move from men of, I should say, from boyhood to malehood, and it's in malehood where men begin to reach the place, or I should say males reach the place where they're now going to be able to thrive. They're going to thrive. And that's where they reach their area of optimal performance in this age group, because this is where they spend most of their time developing to dominate, using muscle, money, and mastery. These are the things that become important to the boy, or I should say the male. And it's important because he still has a similar mindset that he has as a boy, but he uses different tools to gain the domination that he was using with force and violence as a boy. Now he used money, muscle, brain muscle, okay? Not just physical muscle. And mastery, knowledge, information, mastering his area of influence, whatever that may be. That may be his business or his job. So these areas become important to him as well. So now he is once again moved into the 8 areas of development as a male. And in order for him to matriculate from malehood to manhood, he has to master the 8 areas and grow and mature in the 8 areas that we've talked about before. And let's say that he satisfies those requirements and he matriculates into manhood. Now, manhood goes from the ages of anywhere between 56 to 65, and early manhood is from 56 to 60, middle manhood from 61 to 64, and then from late manhood from 65 over. And so it's important that we understand that these ages bring with them a mental mindset, just like I shared before. And now, when a man in manhood, the area that becomes most important are areas of legacy, security, and a monument, a building and a leaving of something. These become important to a man. Legacy is his family. Security is leaving something of substance. And a monument is something of memory of him. So a failure to develop and matriculate results in one remaining stuck in their area of in their development processes. And this is why, again, we have physically grown men acting like boys and boys seemingly acting like they're grown. You know, mom tells him he's the man of the house. No, he's not. He's not the man of the house. He's a boy that needs to develop, and he needs guidance from another man. Okay? Now, when we start talking about males, one of the things I want to go back and talk about, because what we need to understand is that males are not men. I'll tell you again, I'll say it again. Males are not men. Males are males, and men are men. Now, what are some types of males? You know, there's 3 of them that I mentioned the most, but there's 3 others. And it's alpha, beta, what I call metro, gamma, omega, and sigma. Okay, but I'm just going to talk about the first 3 because these are the ones that we most deal with, and that is the alpha male, which is more of a misogynistic and a chauvinistic kind of male. He's on the extreme, and the alpha male is very dominant and domineering, and can get physically abusive. So you have to be careful with the alpha male. The beta male is on the other extreme. It's more feminine than masculine, and has a tendency to be basically run by women. They even think like women, because most times beta males have been either reared by a single parent mother, or they have lived in a 2-parent home where their father was not a proper role model. Maybe he was abusive, or maybe he was not abusive. Maybe he was run by the mother, and he was very, very, very passive. So in those regards, a beta male resists being masculine, and so he has a tendency to think and to behave more feminine and feminine mindedness, and have a more feminine mentality. Now, the metro is what we say that is mostly geared as being said to be in touch with their feminine side, and what these are males that is most likely more been reared by single family homes by women, and these women have really stressed the feminine side, and they have adopted it and included it in their mode of thinking, to the point that they more think like feminine side than masculine side. And then there's gamma, omega, and sigma. We're going to talk about them another time. But it's important that we understand that males hurt males because they don't know who they are. This is why we're seeing the type of male-on-male violence, when we're seeing that they're not properly disciplined, not properly discipled, not properly directed by a man. When they're not directed by a man, namely their father, they can't help but to be dysfunctional. And the truth of the matter is, only a man can generate men. Only men can generate men. Women cannot generate men. You're not designed as one. And I hear some boys and males say that they were raised by their mothers and they came out all right. Believe me, you're not. There's some areas where you're not, you don't have a masculine mentality, you have a feminine mentality. And you need to examine that, and you need to maybe go into counseling and get some help in those areas so that you can get the proper mentality regarding how to think more masculine in that particular area than what you have been. Now, why is this important? Why is this whole thing that I've just presented to you important? It's important because of what's happening in our community, culture, and clan. We have boys, males, and men who don't know who they are. Well, men do, but boys and males don't know who they are. You can't become a man and not know who you are. It's not possible. It is impossible to become a man and not know who you are and what you're supposed to be doing with your life. In other words, to know purpose. But the bottom line is there are many boys and many males who never arrive, and they may be physiologically grown in their body, but yet and chronologically of age, but still are boys or males in their mentality, in their psychology, in their cognitions, in the way that they go about living their lives. Because they have not been developed. They have not been disciplined. They have not been directed. They have not been discipled by a man. Ladies, you've got to understand the importance of your son's father in his life. You've got to understand how important his father is, and you may not like what the father says or does, but it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the father raising the son. The father will pay the price if he doesn't raise his son right. But in most cases, there's no one that's going to raise a son better than the father of it. So it's important, ladies, that you understand the importance of the father in the relationship of his son. Well, I guess that's as far as I want to go to this point. And you know, the violence is because of a lack of development. Not knowing how to go from boys to men. Not having been properly discipled, disciplined, and directed how to go from boys to men. And that one that's most responsible for that is the father. The father. Men, you got to get on your horse. You've got to get on your job. It's not in your job. It's your work. It's your work. It's your son. That is your son. You are supposed to teach him, to disciple him, and to direct him. No other man should be able to do that. No other man will outdo you in doing that if you love your son. If you love your son. Anyway, we're going to stop there. We're going to pick up from there, and we're going to talk about another aspect. I want to go more in depth in, we talked about how these particular roles latch on to, the boys latch on to being competitive, and the whole idea of violence, and why violence comes and has a place in our boys and in our males, and how we can resolve that. That's what we want to talk about in our next video. So until the next time, I hope you got something out of that. I sure did enjoy sharing it with you. So until our next time coming together, it's G. Alva Palmer saying to you, if you would, we would sure love for you to like, subscribe, or hit the notification bell for future uploads. You see the contact information scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Please use it. Email our Patreon page. All our information is underneath the page. Check it out. See you from. Till next time. Peace.
In our current global climate, we're facing challenges never before experienced by this generation. Oppositions where no one seems to have clear directions or answers to the risks facing us. Confrontations like racial and gender unrest, political gerrymandering, toxic leadership, economic crisis, global pandemic, health threats, pre-existing medical conditions, isolation, boredom, and loneliness are driving people to desperation.